Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Shawn Shewchuk. How are you, Shawn?
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. It's so great to have you on. A little bit about Shawn. You have a very impressive bio, and I'm going to just grab a few of the highlights. But Shawn engages and energizes audiences to aim higher and achieve greater results. He is a motivational speaker, a best-selling author of 2 books. He's appeared in 2 movies, which one you also produced, which is super cool. And he's one of the most sought-after speakers in North America. And 2022, I Dominate Speakers magazine named Shawn as one of the top 25 speakers. So thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you taking the time and helping out some entrepreneurs and small business owners too.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you just tell us a little bit, in your own words, of course. I just kind of did your highlights there, but who are you and kind of what you do?
Wow, how much time do we have?
You take as much time as you need, Shawn.
Before we went on air, you and I were chatting, and I too was a farm kid, I guess at some level I kind of take a simple approach to things when I look at business or life or whatever that happens to be. I've been a coach for longer than the coaching realm has existed. Yep. in this space outside of sports. Had the privilege to work with over 12,000 clients. I have appeared on, I think I don't know how many thousands of media outlets and shows and podcasts and whatever radio over the last few years. A couple of books. One of the reasons I do what I do is I get the privilege to work with incredible people throughout the United States, Canada, some in Europe as well. But so many people are looking for some answers, and that's what really this is about. We've all heard, and some of it's true and some of it may not be quite as true, but that becoming an entrepreneur is the way. And there's truth to that because it affords you the freedom to do those things that you want to do. And when you want to do them, if you understand what true entrepreneurship is. My background is that I work with everything from solo entrepreneurs, probably that's the smallest number, but all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. I've built 44 companies, the largest of which was the largest independent management consulting firm on the western side of this continent. And when I sold that in 2007, that last fiscal year, we did $133 million. So wow. I've worked with, a lot of different, styles and sizes and organizations and leadership teams and still do.
Yeah. And I always have the thought that it doesn't matter the size of your organization, problems that you face or challenges that you face are the same. I mean, you can be a small business or a large business. You're still facing things that you have to deal with, right?
The problems just get bigger as the business gets bigger. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My old saying is money-wise, we talk about finances lots, but if you can't manage $100, you can't manage 1,000, 10,000, or 1,000,000, right? Your problems just get bigger, but you still have problems.
That's true.
Yeah. Awesome.
You're not wrong.
So I know that you grew up in BC. You've got Saskatchewan roots. You live in Calgary now. When you were younger, I don't know. You started coaching before there was coaches. What did you want to do as a career? What did you set out to do?
My dad was an entrepreneur. God bless him. He worked hard, and I vowed I would never be an entrepreneur. I watched him work hard, and I watched him put those 18-hour days in. And when I graduated high school, grew up, in a relatively small community, and decided I was going to move to the big city, and I pulled into town thinking that, I had life by the tail. And entrepreneurship was the furthest thing from, that objective. And I went and got myself a job, and then quickly realized I was highly, unemployable. And I decided things had to be different. And I found some things that I like to do, and I went and, bought some real estate. And so I've done real estate my entire life. My family has done real estate. So it was sort of in my blood.
Yep.
Initially I thought I was going to be a police officer. And then my grandmother, and I was, I very much taught to respect my elders. And my grandmother said to me one day when she was still alive, she said, and I was young, I was 20, maybe 21.
Yeah.
She said, get in the car. We're going to the police station, to the head office, and you can apply. And I went up to the recruiting unit and did my thing. And I was turned down. They had some specific requirements, things they were looking for so they could comply with certain, political side of things of who they should be hiring. And I was turned down. At the time, I was quite upset, but, I'm really grateful that they didn't accept me, because, I would have been walking around for 25 years angry, unfulfilled. You don't want an angry guy walking around with a gun on his hip.
No,
so,
not good.
So, and I say that jokingly, of course, but I never regretted any of that at the time. I was somewhat frustrated that I didn't get accepted, and I was born and raised in Canada. Why didn't I get a job? And but the whatever you believe in, universe or God, and there's always a reason things happen.
For sure.
And I decided at some point in time that I was going to start working with businesses, and it really all started going back to when I was about 13 years old. I had, and this predates the internet, and I had my parents order a book. It was advertised in the classified ads in the back of a magazine, and it was something to the effect of help businesses grow. And I still have the book at home, actually. And it basically was a watered-down version of management consulting. But, I was 13. I was in school. Who am I going to consult with? The cattle, down the lane? Nobody cared about that. I was a kid. But eventually I really wrapped my head around it. I didn't have lots of money. I went, and I think it cost me $15 to get 500 business cards that had, it said business consultant, my name. And, though back in those days I had a cell phone. Of course, it was this great big. It wasn't quite as cool and hard as some of the ones we have today.
Yeah.
But, and that's really where I started. And I knocked on doors and banged on doors. And I remember not far from where I'm sitting now, probably 5 or 6 blocks from where I'm sitting, I went into a business. And I used to pride myself, when you walked into businesses, they'd have this little rack on the reception desk and had all the business cards of the people that worked there.
Yeah.
And I used to pride myself in being fast enough to go through the cards and see who the decision maker was by the time I had to answer the receptionist when she said, "How can I help you, sir?" And I did that. I was over at 11th Ave in Southwest Calgary, and the gentleman came out, and he literally grabbed me by my shirt and threw me out the front door of his business. And well, I have that's really where it started. And then, of course, along the way, I've started run 44 different companies. I've written a couple books, done some courses, done some journals, and some of the stuff you can see behind me here on the screen, and a couple of movies. One of them, of course, Game Changer, that I produced a few years ago.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it all started from humble beginnings, really, which I love that.
It all started from and this is interesting. At the time, I don't know if I realized how important or the gravity of it, but it all started because I wanted to help businesses. And it was ordering that book online. And, I remember showing my wife this book, and she goes, "It's so simplistic." And really, it is.
Yeah.
And I happened to pull it out, and I was showing my oldest son probably 2 or 3 months ago, and I told him the story. He's like, "I can't believe you still have this, Dad." And, the idea, that book is, I don't know, almost 40 years old, and it looks it. But the idea behind it it basically was, how do you help companies grow? And the challenge with most of us who are entrepreneurs is we have something called entrepreneur syndrome, where if I don't do it all myself, it isn't done right. So I have to touch every piece of paper or every phone call or every voicemail or whatever that is. And then what happens, because we've now shortchanged ourselves on time as a result of entrepreneur syndrome, those things that are imperative that we do, those high leverage activities that are going to grow our business, move us in the direction of our goal or objective, we relegate them to the back of the desk, the front of the truck or the van or whatever. And we do those things that we enjoy doing, that we really relish.
Yes.
And so then what happens is those things that we've pushed aside because, hey, we're not really too keen on doing some of this stuff. This is where we talk about fires, and entrepreneurs get caught up in putting fires out. And when we put aside those things that, you know, you know what, I'm going to do this, but I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, or I'll do it next month. And then we get consumed with putting fires out. And so the worst use of your energy is putting out these fires that really aren't doing anything other than trying to play catch up because you procrastinated.
Yes. Oh gosh, it's so true. And I think you're so right too, where entrepreneurs, especially when they first start out, they think that they have to do everything. They're like, well, I'm the boss or the owner or the person or whatever it is. So I have to do my books. I have to do my marketing. I have to do my financials. I have to be the manager for all my team. I have to do the ordering. And you get literally bogged down in a lot of it is busy work and things that you're probably not even qualified to really do.
Well, you're not. But so here's the interesting part about this. The largest gap in our lives is between what we know and what we do.
Yes.
And if you want an example of this, and if you or anyone else has children, when they were young, they would go and do something that they knew they shouldn't have done. And so you'd say, hey, little Johnny, why did you do that? And he went, no.
So
right. And then you said, did you know you shouldn't have? Yeah. Right. And we take this into adulthood. So let's do this. Let's say that somebody smokes cigarettes, and I hope you never do, but let's say you do. Okay. Every individual that smokes cigarettes today knows it's shortening their life.
Yep.
There's no question about it. Science has proven this time and time again, notwithstanding the 1950s TV commercials where doctors say it was beneficial.
Yeah, exactly.
So every time we light a cigarette, if you smoke, you know that you're harming yourself. Why do we do it? We know it's bad.
Yeah.
But we do it anyways. And we find reasons of why or how we should justify those things we do. Okay? Exactly. So in the business world, we do the same thing. It's a human nature component where we find reasons to justify why I shouldn't do this or why I shouldn't pick up the phone. The top marketer in the world, his name is Dan Kennedy. And Dan Kennedy says something interesting. He says that entrepreneurs should spend 70% of their time in business generation. You know what most entrepreneurs spend? 10.
I was going to say 1%, right? Yeah, it's true. And recognizing that you're not good at something or that you shouldn't be doing it is the first step, right? Knowing, okay, this is
something needs. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say this is above me, or this is not my skill set. This is not something that I'm good at or doesn't make me money. Like, farm it out. Pay somebody to do it. Have a team member do it.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. It takes a long time to learn that, though.
Some never do.
Yeah.
So just because something needs to get done, it doesn't mean that you should be doing it. You should only engage in, and when I'm coaching and working with entrepreneurs and high achievers and leadership teams, one of the things we talk about at length is, listen, I understand that, for example, data entry for your accounting needs to get done. I get it. It has to happen.
Yes.
But you shouldn't be the one doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because $25 or $30, whatever it is, an hour job, you are worth way more than that if you're the one driving the business. So you need to be out there doing what you're good at. In the book E-Myth, Michael Gerber talks about this, and he says, just because you can go incorporate a company in your jurisdiction, so, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Washington State, Florida, wherever you happen to live, okay? You go incorporate a company, that doesn't make you an entrepreneur.
No.
You're good at what you do. You're a consultant, you're a graphic designer, you're a plumber, you're a welder, whatever it is you're good at. But the problem is because you incorporated a company, you now think you're an entrepreneur. But you're putting more time into your entrepreneur endeavor than you did when you had a job.
Yes.
So what happens is you're putting time in or investing in your company, but you're not seeing the return. You're a technician suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It is, because that's what happens. And people say, and even today, there's this fallacy that's propagated about entrepreneurs. And a lot of people say, especially people close to me, family who don't know anything about being an entrepreneur, and I'll say, yeah, listen, I know that everyone's going away to this particular, resort in January or March or whatever they're going. And they'll say, well, you guys should join us, your wife, your family. And I'll say, we'd love to, but I can't. I have an event, or I'm speaking at, I've committed to something.
Yep.
And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you don't work for anybody. You're You
You're
own the
no
business.
boss.
You're right, I am. But if I made a commitment to somebody, I'm not going to phone them, 3 weeks or a month before when that's been on the calendar for a year and say, hey, you know what? Too bad. Or if a client's paying me, handsomely to work with them or their company or their team, phone them and say, yeah, I know you're paying me, but yeah, I'm going away for 2 weeks. That's fine if they're aware, but
Yes.
you can't cancel it. And so what we need to understand is, if you're an entrepreneur, you do have a boss. Your boss are your clients.
Yes. Yeah, they're
Right?
dictating what you're doing, right?
And you need to be selling. If you don't like sales, don't become an entrepreneur. That's a very harsh statement to make because every business is a sales organization. And if you don't want to sell and if you don't sell, you're not going to be in business.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
That is so true. And I always say too, I did an Ask Me Anything episode and someone sent a question in that said, I have a product, so I want to do it, but I'm afraid of sales. I have no sales experience. I don't know what to do. And my thing was, you better learn how to sell. Because if you have a business that you have a product to sell and you don't know how to sell or you feel uncomfortable selling, you're going to get nowhere, right? A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card.
100%. I was speaking at an event in Phoenix. No, I was in Reno, Nevada, a number of years ago, 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And when I got off the stage, there was about, 200 people lined up that wanted to talk to me. And one of the gentlemen that was waiting to talk to me, and probably took me half an hour to get to his place in line. And he said, I really like what you had to say, Shawn. I said, awesome. I hope it benefited you. I hope you took a lot away from it. I said, tell me about you. He goes, I'm a coach. I said, perfect. I said, how's coaching? He goes, well, not very good, actually. I'm having a hard time getting clients. I said, well, why do you think that is? He goes, well, I really want to be successful as a coach, but he says, I hate people. Listen, if you don't like people, don't get into something where you have to interact with people on an ongoing basis.
Yes.
And maybe take steps to start to benefit from interactions with people. Life is about, listen, we're social beings. Life is, I remember at the beginning of 2020, it was April 2020, there was this big online, it was a seminar, I guess, but it was all online, of course, because of COVID. And myself, there was a whole bunch of speakers brought in. There was only 2 speakers on there that were very business driven. Good friend of mine is a colleague of mine out of the United States, and myself. And there was this individual who was so-called an expert saying that the face of business has changed. And because of COVID, we would never meet in person again from a business perspective. We'd never shake hands or give hugs. We'd never meet at the boardroom table. We'd never do live events, seminars, trainings, this kinds of things. And I took issue with that statement. And so did this gentleman who's a good friend of mine out of the United States and who does a lot of the same things that I do. And I because at the end of the day, we're social beings, and there is no way that we can go for any extended period of time without doing that. And if you want an example of this, look at my own kids. Look at some of the challenges that children encountered over the course of that year and a half or 2 years, where they were essentially locked into the same 4 walls. There's no sports, there's no activity, there's no school, and they suffered.
Oh yes.
Human beings are an interesting breed, and adults, of course, we're a little more emotionally engaged, hopefully, by the time we hit adulthood. So we can manage this a little bit better than children can. But business is about people. I get people that come up to me all the time. They say, Shawn, I want to do the 6-figure and the 7-figure business deals. And there's this misconception they can post something on Craigslist or on Facebook, and magically people are going to just migrate toward them and say, hey, I've got $100,000. Here it is. Let's do business.
Yes.
Those deals come as a result of strong, powerful, high trust and productive relationships. And they happen over coffee. They happen over a glass of wine. They happen over dinner. They don't happen because you posted something on Facebook. And so you have to be strategic and intentional in everything you do. And that means building strong, powerful, and high trust relationships. I'll attend events that I'm not even speaking at. I was in San Diego 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I wasn't speaking at the very high-end event, significant money to attend between flights and buying a ticket. Why do I go? Because it's those individuals you meet at those events are going to change what you do.
100%. And that community and that network of people that you have those relationships with lead you to new opportunities and open doors that you couldn't do yourself.
Every time.
Right? Being an entrepreneur is lonely often. Right? Like when you're the person and by yourself.
You need a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And you need that
Right?
group of people.
When you hit a certain level of success as well, there's no one to bounce ideas off up here.
That's right.
There's very few people that play at this level. I've got a few of them. I've got about probably half a dozen people right now, but I was just talking to one yesterday. And, we've worked together for a couple of years, and now my role has shifted and changed. I become that, this is not something we market or sell, but it's almost a virtual executive where I work with him. He has access to me and contacts me and, these things, because when you hit a certain level, and he said to me, Shawn, he says, I wouldn't be where I am today and our company wouldn't be where it is if we hadn't brought you on. And he said that to me because they have increased by 137% in the past 2 years, their business. Okay. They just bought a brand new building, millions of dollars. Okay. And I share this because what happens is we get caught up in the day-to-day, head down on the other end in the air. Okay. Yeah. And that we miss out on opportunities. And what him and I worked on was saying, hey, listen, you can't do everything. You can't be the one down on the floor. You can't be the one micromanaging people. You need to have people that you can trust and work hand in hand and side by side. This is how you grow. And now I'm a phone call. Yeah, I go see him once every month or two or whatever, and we sit down and have a bite to eat for a couple of hours, and we catch up on where he's at and what he's doing. But that's the reality. When you hit a certain level and you keep growing and pushing is a requirement. Sometimes in society today, we're told we don't need to do anything. It's just going to magically appear for us, and that's not real. No, you need someone to work with. You need somebody who's not your friend. You need someone who's not the yes person. You need somebody who's going to hold you accountable, who's going to ask you those tough questions. And who might say no, or that's not a good idea, right? 100%. Yeah, I agree. Because I've actually had people get angry at me. They'll phone me and say, I got this amazing idea, and we'll talk, we'll explore it, we'll deep dive it. I'll say, I don't think that's congruent with your objective. I don't think you should do that. Yeah. They're like, but Shawn, but you're my coach and I'm paying you. I know, but you're not paying me just to say yes. If that was the case, you can find a friend of yours and have a beer later. If you just have yes people in your organization, no matter what size you are, you're going to face a lot of challenges. Because if you have no one that says, I don't think that's a good idea, or wait a minute, let's look at what could happen, what the outcome might be. And if you don't have that, you are going to have a lot of problems. Well, and at the end of the day, if you have that and you don't make a shift and a change into those ideals or that culture, you will fail. Yeah, it's true. Right? Because what happens is it creates an environment of peaks and valleys, right? There's no consistency to your growth. And if you do peaks and valleys, eventually you will go down so far into one of those valleys, you never come out. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for any of us that set out to have a business, that's worst case scenario, right? You don't want to get there. And you don't have to get there. No, it pains me greatly to see businesses. And I remember going back, and this is interesting. I was actually talking about this week with a client of ours, just in the city of Calgary, Alberta, in the first 3 months of COVID. So we'll say, I don't know, April, May, and June, let's say, because the whole thing kind of happened middle of March. Yeah. 10,000 businesses went out of business in this city alone. Now, I want you to think about the impact that had on those people and their families. It's astronomical. Yeah. Right? I'm on 17th Ave Southwest in Calgary and 10th Street. So between 10th Street and 14th Street, 4 blocks on both sides of the street, over 30 restaurants, bars, cafes went out of business during COVID. Yeah. Like, I want you to, just for a moment, if you're a business owner or you want to be in business, and you should do that, just think about this, the impact it had. And a lot of these folks, it's nothing they did wrong. They didn't mismanage. They were forced to close. Yes. But there are a ton more, and I want to be very clear, there are a ton more that go out of business every day, and they are going out of business not because there isn't business to be had, They're going out of business because of mismanagement, and maybe not intentional mismanagement, but mismanagement. And that's the difference. You can bring somebody in to work with you who's going to give you the tools you need to build, scale, and expand. And the purpose of going into business is not to give yourself more work ever. The purpose of business is freedom. Freedom is defined in 3 ways. The ability to do what you want, when you want, and with whom. That encompasses everything.
Yep.
Right? So you want to grow and expand. You want to scale your business. And so you have to do it in a way where it's not just sustainable, but you see incremental growth.
Yes,
and
exactly.
If you do it the right way, when I say this with intention, you can collapse timeframes. You can get to where you want to get much faster if you understand what you as the leader, as the entrepreneur, should be doing every day. But you can't scale and you cannot grow unless you know what you shouldn't be doing. So first and foremost, you need to figure out, you and your coach need to figure out, what is that list of things that you don't do? And then you need to download, delegate, and automate. And that's where you start to see the growth happen.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're thinking of this, it's time management, right? And it's managing their time so that they can, do things more effectively. So let's talk about that a little bit. Time management. Why is it important? It's essential, really.
For probably 3 generations, we have been told that we need to manage time better. And I want to share this with you and every single person. Well, hold on, though. This is an interesting one. You cannot manage time. You get all there is. This thing doesn't stop. Okay?
That's right.
So you cannot manage time, but you can. And you have the ability to manage the activities and the time that you've been blessed with. So every activity, and we're speaking specifically about business and your business initiatives, every activity that you engage in needs to be high leverage. If you're doing anything that is non-productive, and by the way, productivity is defined as any action, step, or activity that moves in the direction of your goal or objective. So if you're doing anything that is non-productive, please, for the love of God, stop doing it.
Yes. Recognize, right? That's the first thing.
100%. I phoned up a gentleman here just a couple of months ago. He's a former client, become a friend, worked with me for probably 3 or 4 years. And I just, small talk. Hey, how are you doing? What's happening in your world? What's new? And he said, I'm sitting at the computer right now, just punching stuff in. I said, and then, of course, my interest is tweaked now. I'm like, so what are you punching? Oh, he said, well, someone's got to put in all the numbers into Sage or Simply Accounting or QuickBooks or whatever they use. And
Why the heck is it you?
Well, this is a company that's doing about $28 or $29 million a year.
Oh, Lord.
And I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, somebody has to do it. I said, you are 100% right, but it should never be you.
Yes.
He goes, my wife's busy and this person's on holidays. I said, he said, and I can't hire another person. I said, no, hold on. What do you think a bookkeeper? Find a good one. Get it referred to one. What do you think a bookkeeper costs? He goes, I don't know, $30, $35 an hour. And I said, yeah. At the high end. I said, so what are you worth per hour? Oh, Shawn, he says, I didn't want to talk to you now because you just made me look stupid. And the point was never that. I don't ever want to make something like what he said. What the point was for him to realize that, well, he's doing a $35 an hour job, he could be making $1,000 or more.
Exactly. Time is money.
His skill set is stuff that allows him to do that. I remember I was speaking at an event, a fairly large event, a couple thousand people almost, and the organizer had put up microphones on the 2 aisles for Q&A at the end of my presentation. And one of the things I talked about was this, time, in my presentation. And I'd shared with the audience that I don't clean my house. It doesn't mean my house is dirty.
Yeah.
I don't clean my house.
Yeah, someone else does it for you.
Who comes in and cleans for us. That doesn't mean that my kids don't clean their room, et cetera, et cetera. That means that this person helps us out. I said, I don't mow my lawn in the summer. I have someone that helps me with that.
Yep.
I live in a climate where we get fairly decent amount of snow. I have someone that helps with clearing the snow out of my, right? And so when I finish speaking, people ask questions, people have questions. And if there's anyone who's watching or listening right now and you happen to speak from stage or, and do training and you're at the front of the room, there can always be awkward moments. And so this elderly woman comes up to the microphone. I'm going to guess she was in her 70s. And she said, Mr. Shewchuk, she said, I'm really upset with you. And I said, oh. Now, you could hear a pin drop in this room. There's 2,000 people. It's deadly quiet.
They're like, what you
She
going to
says,
say?
I really wish. She goes, you think you're better than us? I said,
Oh, no.
okay. Why would you say that? She says, well, because you said you don't do any of the stuff around your house and us poor folk have to. And I said, well, first of all, poor is a mindset, not a bank account. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can change that, but that's your decision. I said, secondly, she says, hold on, you interrupted me. I said, okay. She says, I wish some man would have come along and proposed to me and I wouldn't have to do any work at all like I do now and have done my whole life. And he would have just paid someone to do everything for me. And so, of course, people, you've got 2,000 people looking on the stage, and you have to diffuse this. So I was on stage and I got down on one knee as if I was going to propose, and I invited her to come up on the stage. Now, of course, she wouldn't come up on the stage, but of course, everyone laughed and roared, and it was funny and crazy.
Yeah.
And but that's and of course, that's the humor is the best way to diffuse any situation. But
Of course.
that's a lot of the perspective that people have.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to be successful in business, and I say because anyone can be if they want it bad enough, you need to make a shift and a change. The problem is change comes hard. A good friend of mine, mentor and coach, he's the president of High Point University. His name is Dr. Nito Cobain at High Point's in North Carolina. And he says that, and this is so very true, that most people remain the same until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change.
Yes.
So
that's such a true statement.
That's a challenge. If you want more, you have to be willing to do something about it, not just talk about it. You actually have to be able to quantify what you're going to do and go do it. If you set out to do something big and you have never been there before, your mind, your brain doesn't understand or assimilate it the way. If I said you made 50 grand last year, you know how to make 50 grand. But if I say to you, next year you need to make $1 million, you've never been there before, you're going to have a really hard time with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I want you to think about this. We said at the top of the show that I'm a simple guy and I grew up on a farm. Now, 2 farms, one in British Columbia with fruit, one in Saskatchewan, the prairies with grain and that. You can eat an entire apple, but you can't do it in one bite.
That's right.
But you can do it in bite-sized pieces. So if we take that $1 million and we reverse engineer it, so the dollars and then what you need to do, what those high leverage activities are that correspond to that breakdown, when we reverse engineer it, you'll hit $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Your mind can grasp a few $100s an hour, a few $100 a week, a couple $1,000. You get that. So understand when I get the privilege to work with people, one of the first things we do is find out where they want to go. And when we know where you're going, all we have to do now is reverse engineer it to create a roadmap to get you there. Now, I know I make it sound simple and it's not that simple, but that's the reality, right? And if you want to get there, this is what it's going to take.
Yeah. Well, and change is hard, right? And change is fear, because as humans, usually when we say we have to change, I have to do something different, it's like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to do it wrong. I'm not going to get there. And that's kind of your initial reaction. But you're right. If you break that down to smaller pieces that you know what to do or you know how to get there, it makes it a lot more manageable.
You're right.
Yeah, 100%. Are there common stumbling blocks that hold people back from success with regards to time? Is there things you see over and over?
Time is actually a pretty interesting topic, because one of the biggest things, I guess, is I have a couple of pet peeves. One of them is I don't have time.
Yeah.
And the other one is I'm killing time. And you people, you say, well, what are you up to? I'm just killing some time. What does that even mean? You don't get it back. This is not a test drive. It's not a mulligan. You don't get a do-over. So
it's gone.
The only thing you can't renew is time.
That's right.
You can make more money. You could buy a new car. You can't create more time. So those are 2 pet peeves of mine. But the most common, I think, is I don't have time. Now, I want to be very clear. I don't get any more time today than any one of you watching or listening to this interview.
Yeah, 24 hours is 24 hours, right?
100%. And you know what? I run 3 companies. I work with some pretty interesting, and I'll even use the term demanding clients. I'm married to an amazing woman and I have 2 young kids. I can promise you that I have more going on than probably 95% of the people out there today. And I'm not bragging. I'm just making a statement.
It's facts.
And I'm not complaining either. And if I can go out and do this, you can too. And we talk about people, you can talk about Sir Richard Branson, you can talk about Tony Robbins, if you know who that is, you can talk about, there's a ton of people who do very, very well. And they have the same amount of time that you have in your day.
Exactly.
It's not about the time, it's what you do with your time. So
Yes.
to say I don't have time is a misstatement, isn't real. And it's a justification for you not engaging in those things that are going to give you what you really want and desire.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
It was never intended for us to live a life of poverty or lack. It was always intended for us to live a life of abundance.
Yep. And I think too, that goes to procrastination, right? Like you say, you just shove things over on the side of your desk that you're like, I don't have time to work on this, or I'll do this when I have a minute, and nothing ever happens, right? And
Yep.
those are typically the things, if you're not delegating jobs to other people or paying other people to do jobs that you shouldn't be doing, those things often never get done. And that's your growth. That's your increase in sales or whatever it happens to be.
Well, and those are the things that catch fire that you have to now go put fires out instead of focusing on those productive activities.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
I talk a lot in my own self, I guess, about working smarter, not harder. And I think a lot of that goes back to the delegating or paying other people to do things. But do you have any advice on that? What do you think about that?
It's an interesting. So, smarter, not harder, is something that's been around for a while, and there's a lot of experts, so-called experts, anyways, that use that. One of the things that I think is really important in all of this is buzzwords can mean a lot, but can also not, and I say that for this reason. Let's first get clear on where you're going. Let's first get clear on what you want to achieve. Once we know what that is, it's very easy to work backwards. And then we make a determination. And it's when I work with people, we make a determination of what those call them smart activities or high leverage activities are that you need to be doing every day, every hour, going the other direction every week, every month, etc. Because there are things that, for example, I do one-on-one coaching still. Now, my coaches for 20 years have been telling me I shouldn't do one-on-one. Now, I only take 5 on at any given time, but I like it. I enjoy working one-on-one with high-level people. I get to watch, there are people they're doing $100 million a year. And when we're done working in that year, they've gone well beyond that, even over 2 in some cases. Why?
Yep.
Because we've gone and taken a look at where they're going. We've broken down and said, yeah, you can do this, but here's the roadmap. And so one of the things you may have heard this before, and I've been asked this a lot. Shawn, where do you get the roadmap, or is there an owner's manual? This kind of question.
Yeah.
And the reality is no, right?
There's not.
I want you to think of this. You need to make a decision, and when it comes to, so for example, people come to me and say, Shawn, I want to work with you. And then they'll say, Shawn, we'll not even talk about the finances, and we'll have a conversation for half an hour or 40 minutes, and they'll say, yeah, I can't work with you. And I'll say, well, why would you say that? They'll say, oh, you're too expensive. I say, well, we haven't even talked about, what the investment looks like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can just tell from the conversation. You need to make a decision from where you want to be and not where you are. If you're going to make a decision from where you are, you're going to stay where you are.
Exactly.
So for example, if you and I are having a conversation and we come to that conversation around money, listen, money is always a sensitive topic, right? And you go, oh my gosh, I want you to make a decision that you're going to jump. And Bob Proctor used to say this for years ago. Bob Proctor, if you don't know who that was, he passed away last year, well-known around the world for The Secret in his books. And he wrote the foreword to my first book, actually. He used to say, jump off the building and grow wings on the way down. Now, I don't want you to literally go on top of the building and jump off. What he's saying is fear exists nowhere except in here. There's no fear out here.
Nope.
Okay. And if you jump off, you will grow wings on the way down. That's the idea. So if you and I are sitting across from each other or on the other end of a Zoom call, and you want to work with me because you know that there's more, you can achieve more, it was intended you to achieve more, and you come to the money, make the decision to do it anyways, because that's making a decision from where you want to be and not where you are. Otherwise, you stagnate and you stay where. And let's be clear about something. You only plateau for so long before you start going the other way, and I don't want to know what's down there.
Yeah, exactly. And I always look at that as an investment. That's an investment into your business. That's not just an expense, right? You're investing, learning, you're investing, how do I make that roadmap, and all of those things that are going to grow your business. And guess what happens when you grow your business? You have more money, right? So that's an investment into your business that shouldn't be looked at as it's a bill I have to pay.
Well, I don't have a problem with bills because you listen. There are people that view me as utility, and that's not a bad thing. And if you're watching and listening out there and you do coaching, one of the things you want to do is you want to become a utility.
You're necessary to succeed, right? To be open, to run your business.
Every single one of us pays our electricity bill, pays our gas bill, pays our phone bill, pays our whatever those bills are we pay every month. And yeah, at the end of the day, we understand that they're all necessary. If you live in a climate where it's cold, you need to have heat.
Yes.
Okay. If you want to have a phone, you've got to pay a bill. Right?
Exactly.
So if you're going to grow and succeed and keep doing that, it's not just about a year. It's about perpetuity. And I have clients right now that I've worked with for 13 years. Right? 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
Why? Because every day, and they understand this. Every day, every week, every month, every year, it gets better and they grow more and they make more. And there's a couple right now, without mentioning names, who I'm going to say they're in their late 30s. Maybe he's pushing that 40 mark. They'll be retired in 5 years.
Yeah. Well, growth never stops, right? It's not like you get to a certain point and then you're like, okay, that's good. No, you get to that point and then you're like, now what can we do?
Well, growth never stops, but you're not necessarily part of it unless you decide to be.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you have to make that conscious decision.
100%.
Yeah. I love your roadmap idea and managing or getting rid of like your to-do list. Like, I love that if you set a roadmap, that's going to help you. That's going to help you get there.
A to-do list is never something you're going to do. What you need to, so in, So in the Freedom Journal or planner that I did, we talk about, and I've been talking about this today with you, high leverage activities.
Yeah.
So every day in here, every day has 3 HLAs, high leverage activities. And then at the end of the day, we talk about, did you complete those? What are you waiting for? Maybe you're waiting for someone to send you something, or you're waiting for something to come in the mail or an email, or defer to, right? We've done as much as we can. Now we defer it down the road a week. Delegate. Did I ask one of my staff, or did I ask one of my kids or something to do this? And then completed by, because at the end of the day, procrastination takes over. That's a human nature thing.
Yes. Or if something comes up, like that seems to happen a lot. Like, oh, hey, can we have a quick meeting? Oh, hey, can I call you quick? And you kind of have a hard stop in that time frame when you had set aside to work on that project.
100%.
Yeah. Are you a fan of scheduling time out of your day for focus time or whatever it happens to be?
Yeah, you should block time. So when I work with people and we reverse engineer the financial side and then the high leverage activities, we take those high leverage activities and together we'll block it in their calendars. And I don't care what you use iCalendar or Google, whatever you use, we'll block it in your calendar. Why? Because in my own life, in my own business, if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist.
100%.
I'll have friends will phone me and say, hey, you guys want to go for dinner on Saturday evening? I'm like, sure, which Saturday? And you'll be like, you're putting me in the calendar, aren't you? I'm like, yep.
Yep. Oh, I agree. If it's not in my calendar, I don't do it. And also, I found what works well for me is if I have a project or something that I'm working on that I'm like, I need to get this done today, I block out that time in my calendar. I also turn my cell phone off. And I turn the volume on my computer off so I don't hear an email come in. I don't get the ding, right, of an email, because when I hear that ding, I want to go check the email. So when I do those small little things, just turning sound off and turning like my phone off or putting my phone in a different room, I actually focus on that item.
I have a question for everyone listening and watching today, and I think this is an important thing. Tell me what runs your life. And I know none of you can, but tell me what runs your life. Think about this. And I'm going to tell you now.
Oh,
this thing.
Cell phones. 100%.
So it beeps, it vibes, it rings, whatever you've programmed it to do. The first thing you do is you run and grab it. It doesn't matter what you're in the middle of. Okay?
Nope.
It does not matter. Right? I remember one time a couple I was working with, and she came in and she said to me, she says, Shawn, you got to talk to my husband. It's funny when you're coaching, everything comes out on the table. She says to me, she says, Shawn, you got to talk to my husband. We were like literally in the bedroom last night, and he picked this thing up to check it. Right? Now, whatever they were doing in the bedroom, I don't want the specifics or details, but the point that he picked up his phone was bad enough anyway.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. We do that. So when we, for example, we do training or coaching, I'll ask people to leave their phones with our reception desk.
Yes. Well, you can't escape it.
Right? You want to see the withdrawal they go through for the first 10 minutes?
Yeah. People go wild.
So we were doing a training. So, we live in Alberta, and so Alberta, very heavy in the oil sector, oil and gas. And we had a team of guys that were coming from the field and moving into the downtown office. And so communication styles are radically different from the field to downtown. You can't walk around. Profanity can't be the norm, that kind of thing. It's a different environment.
Yeah.
And so the vice president of this division of the company, who knew me and had done work with me, we were doing a training, and it was a 2-day training. Day one of the training, they all show up to our office. At the time, we had a big training center, and we had a basket at the front desk where they had to put their phones. So, and I was illustrating to them at one point in time how the phones ran their lives. And they're like, no, I only answer it, when I need to, blah, blah. So I had one of my assistant or the receptionist, I forget who, I said, pick one of the phone numbers and keep dialing. We had a list of who's all attending. Just dial their phone number until one rings. Well, it was hilarious. We've got 20 guys or 25 guys sitting around this U shape. And everyone's like,
oh God. Yeah.
Right? Because it's that reception. And I started laughing. I said, there's nobody. I said, that's my assistant.
Yeah.
Right? And when we broke for lunch, like, you would think it was little children who got candy at Halloween, how fast they ran to that reception desk to get their phones. And then they stood outside of our office along the poor women from the other offices on our floor had to run this gauntlet of these 25 guys all on their phones. It was the first time we ever got a complaint. First and only time, because they made a complaint to the property manager saying, we had to walk this gauntlet to use the restroom and they were using profanity. But it's interesting how this dominates our life. Let's be clear. When I'm coaching, I don't answer my phone or text messages.
No.
And there are some times when I'm coaching or I'm on an interview or I'm doing where I'll get a phone call or text message, and an hour later or 2 hours later, when I go to check it, people are like, what the hell, where are you? How come you haven't answered? What are you doing? And I'll have 6 new clients. And I'll phone them and say, listen, I'm not being disrespectful, but did somebody die?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't mean that in a rude or disrespectful way. I mean, listen, I promise you I'll phone you back. But I'm not living with this thing attached to my ear.
No.
Right? We need to run things, not this thing run us.
100%. And that is what happens. Somebody phones you, and if you don't answer, they phone you back 10 minutes later. And if you don't answer, they text you. And it's like, same thing. I'll get back to you always. That's the rule I have. I'll always get back to someone, but I'm busy right now. And I'm sorry that you're not included in that.
You should see the kids. I have an almost 12-year-old, and you should see the demand.
Oh, I have a 14-year-old.
My son has a friend who, interesting character, he'll call 17 times.
Oh God.
And I'm like, what in the, we'll be having dinner. I'm like, turn the ringer off. We're done. Right. It's an interesting society we live in with the devices and how connected we are.
I agree. And like you say now, our kids all have them. And frankly, that started my stepson, he spends a week with us and a week with his mom. And when he was 11, we got him a cell phone so that we could talk to him when he was with his mom, or, send a text, we're on our way to pick you up, whatever it is. So in all reality, it started out as a convenience for us. And now it is attached to him. And I understand it because that's their age. But like dinner time, cell phones don't come to the table. That's our rule. That's our time, because we know if we don't have that rule, listen, my husband and I are guilty too. We're going to be on the phone. So it's not allowed. And that's really worked well for us. Yep. Shawn, do you have a most important lesson that you can share with our listeners?
One of the terms they used to use is their golden nugget. And I think there is. Yeah. Every single one of us today wants more. Now, it may mean more time. It may mean more money. It may mean more freedom, whatever that means to you. And we all have our own priorities.
Yeah.
But I want you to do something, and this is an actionable step. When you finish watching and listening to us have this conversation, pick one thing that you're going to take action on today that's going to move you forward. It could be you're going to pick up the phone. And I'll give you an example of just one that I do. Every day, without exception, I pick up the phone, I call 3 people without any agenda other than to say, hi, how are you? And
Connection.
I'll pick up the phone, and it's all about connect. And I'll pick up the phone and they'll answer like, hi, Shawn, how are you? I'll say, I'm good. How are you doing? They're like, what can I do for you? I'm like, oh, nothing. I just called to say hi.
Yeah.
They're like,
What?
That's it. Yeah, just say hi. Why do I do this? Strong, powerful, high trust, and productive relationships. If that individual, let's say you're a coach, okay, and that individual is going out for dinner on Saturday evening with 2 other couples, and he or she, is sitting there, and someone says something about their business, about their career, maybe they're an executive with a company, whatever it is, and they say, you know what, I really got to bring in a really good coach. Do you know the first thing that's going to happen is that individual who you called that week is going to go, hey, you know what, I got a guy, I got a girl, I'm going to introduce you.
Yep.
That's what happens. So relationships are where it starts. That's what business is built on and predicated on.
100%. Is there anything that you wish you had known, or maybe that you would tell your past self, some advice?
I love this question, and I get asked it a fair bit on interviews. Yeah, you know what? I think, when you're younger, you want more. And I remember being in my early 20s and, getting past the gatekeepers in businesses and companies was always tough. And I honestly, I wished to have gray hair instead of dark hair. And I can tell you right now, I wish I had hair. So there's wherever you happen to be in your journey, there is a reason that you're there. And I want you to find it, and I want you to embrace it because there's purpose in why you're there, and there's a plan for you.
Yeah, I love that advice. And you're learning those lessons along the way that will help your future self, right?
100%.
Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. Where can people find you? You have a great website. I know that. Let us know your website.
So changeyourresults.com is a website. If you would like to go take a look and grab a copy of one of my books or the journals or planners or the movie, you can go to highproductivitystore.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Of course, we will.
I'm never on social
We'll take
media,
Shawn too, and all of our LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all that as well, so that you can find him. Shawn, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all of this great advice, which I already have a few things on my list here. I've been taking notes that I'm going to incorporate. And for everybody listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.